Somebody asked me, why do I like cold cases? Why do I like looking at cold cases and finding unsolved murders and mysteries and everything? You don't get it. That is like the universe giving you a scenario. Okay, for your consideration, here we have XYZ. People tell me forensic investigators, detectives, law enforcement, professionals, and specialists have been working on these cases and haven't solved them. What do you think you're going to do? I said, what I think I'm going to do is not try to do what they're doing at all, because I'm not a police investigator. I'm not a forensic investigator. I'm not a private investigator. I'm a writer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that situation, I'm going to reconstruct it a little bit to fit into whatever universe I have been creating. And then with my own set of clues, circumstances, forensic evidence, what have you, I'm going to solve it because it's now in my universe. It's not in the real world, and I can do whatever I want. You also, in addition to having kind of a blueprint of a storyline, you have the opportunity to sit and look at all these different methods, not just of investigating and DNA analysis and forensic analysis and any of that other stuff, but the way the investigators think. And you have a way of looking into their minds and seeing through their eyes, and using that, you can take your detective, your protagonist, your amateur sleuth, whatever, and help fill in some of the ways that they would put all the pieces together to come up with this puzzle, to solve it, to answer the mystery, to catch the killer, to catch the criminal, to catch the imposter, to catch the villain, however you want to do it. Some of the cold cases, it's kind of difficult to kind of access information because technically a cold case is still an open case. And cases that have been around in the last 30 years, I've talked to different law enforcement professionals, and I guess it depends on your jurisdiction. Some say absolutely not. We never disclose any active investigations, any open cases. Others have said that if you are an investigator, if you can show that you have a legitimate reason for doing that, you sign a full disclosure and mutual cooperation agreement, so to speak, where if you come up with anything, you will turn it over to the investigating team or the investigating agency. They will allow you certain access. And then there are other cold cases where they pretty much realize they're never going to solve them. They're so old that even solving it would just kind of be an academic exercise. The most famous open cold case in U.S. history, I would say, are the Borden murders. Lizzie Borden was acquitted at her trial of killing her father and her stepmother. Nobody else was charged, so technically the case is still open. The fact that the events took place in 1895, which is almost 120 years ago, nobody involved is still around. Whoever did it has long since appeared before another judge against whom there is no appeal. So, yeah, you can go in and you can look at anything you want in that, because just about everybody has. I might, just because, why not? Another case that actually is a little poignant for me, the Black Dahlia murders in LA. This was a young woman who was found brutally murdered and defiled with surgical precision. She was found cut in half in a vacant lot in the 1940s. The way that it was done, the absolute lack of blood at the scene, they knew it had been done someplace else, and by somebody who had a lot of medical experience. It's never been solved. That one was kind of important to me, or special to me, because the last place she was seen alive was at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles, which is where I used to stay when I would visit LA a lot. But that is one that, they tracked down all these suspects. They interviewed. Nobody ever was convicted. I don't think it even went to trial. They have a pretty good idea. The son of one of the suspects actually became a police officer just so he could investigate this case and prove that his father did it. A lot of people have dismissed his claims, and all those files are open. I think they realize that nobody's ever going to be caught or convicted, and if they solve it, it's just going to be an academic question now. But you can go in, you can look at the notes, you can see the investigations, and you can get all kinds of ideas. And sometimes it is a nice exercise to sit down and look at an investigation and say, now, if I was this person, how would I handle it? What techniques would I use? What techniques are available now? Of course, you realize that unless you've been in forensics or law enforcement, that even Arthur Conan Doyle was an armchair investigator. And that if you've come up with all these wonderful ideas, you're pretty confident that somebody on the investigating team and the law enforcement agencies have already come up with them. But it's a good exercise in learning how to think forensically. And forensics is not just dealing with fingerprints, body parts, evidence. It is analyzing, collecting, and processing the information. That's why forensics is like a form of debate. You're collecting all your information to present your argument in a concise, clearly thought out, very well explained manner. Forensic science is when you're doing the exact same thing with all of the parts to an investigation. Studying cold cases gives you kind of an insight in how to think and act forensically. I would encourage anybody that's interested in getting into mystery writing, true crime writing, or whatnot to do exactly that. And you'll not only understand the strengths of an investigator and an investigation, you'll understand the weaknesses and the challenges for it. And those are what are going to go into making believable storylines and believable scenarios for you. So take your intuition, dust off an old cold case, and give it a go. Who knows? You might be able to solve it, which is something that happened not with me, but in a similar situation. I was working on this scenario for a storyline of a team that worked with an investigative program that would go out and look at cold cases and try and come up with anything somebody might have overlooked. And I had worked out this storyline where it was something that happened about 50 years ago, and the scene was mishandled, and all this evidence was contaminated, and the investigation was compromised, and the family was still trying to solve it. And they reached out to this program that specialized in these things, and these people came in and uncovered a piece of information that everybody overlooked, and ta-da, we found the killer. Imagine my shock, chagrin, pleasure, and surprise when I sat down one morning and I'm going through the headlines and I find a story about an investigating team that did exactly that. And I said, okay, well, at least I now know that my scenario was believable. But I also abandoned my little project because, well, it's kind of already been done, and I don't want to look like I'm copycatting. I haven't abandoned the story or the premise. I've just abandoned the cast of characters, or reconfigured them, I should say. But yeah, see if you can heat up a cold case.